We have about 70%, around 70% of our jail population that's in there that are unconvicted. So you think of all the people in jail, 60 to 70% of those on a daily basis have never been convicted of any crime.
Imagine you were charged with a crime. You're going to have to go through a pretrial hearing where the judge sets your bail. And if you can't afford that bail, then you're out of luck. You have to sit in jail until the time of your trial date. And sometimes that is only a matter of days, but sometimes it's months. So during that time, you could lose your job. If you owe rent, you won't be able to pay that from the inside. Relationships with your friends and family could crumble, and it's not a good circumstance. Eventually, you will reach your trial date, and you're either convicted of a crime or proven innocent. But either way, you'd get no remediation for that time you spend behind bars. When the judge is making the decision about how much you should have to pay, they don't have hardly any information about you, which means they're making an uninformed decision, which is pretty problematic.
This bail system that we have now, individual is arrested, and it may be a fairly insignificant arrest. If they don't have the money to meet the bail that is now basically a set schedule, the judge looks at the case, doesn't do much analysis, identifies the bail amount. If they don't have the money, they sit in jail. And it's a system that is, in essence, been broken and needed to be analyzed, looked at, studied, and addressed.
Judges make bail decisions typically without any information. There's not counsel present for the defendant typically, and they don't really know a lot about the defendant. One of the people I write about in my book, her name's Purcell, she steals an iPhone from her neighbor, is charged with a bail amount her family can't afford, $200. And she ends up spending 60 days in jail, isn't able to fulfill her school obligations, her family obligations, and over an iPhone. And then on the other side, there's people that, there's a couple in New York, very wealthy couple, end up torturing and abusing their household servants, end up being released on bail, no problem, because they have money.
We have certain rights. We're not supposed to be just put into jail because somebody believes we're guilty. The bail system as it stands, there's no due process if you can't come up with the money. It's just one box that doesn't get checked. And so you sit in jail until you're able to come up with the money or until a judge makes some other decision.
There's also an issue of constitutional rights, that we're not respecting the constitutional rights. And Utah is a state where we care about privacy rights, we care about constitutional liberties, and these are directly being infringed on when we have a bail system that's relying on money and not on justice.
At its heart, bail was supposed to be a way to guarantee that a defendant showed up at his hearing. It turned out, though, that it's not now what it has become. It's become a system, a money-making machine.
The cost of incarcerating someone in jail for a day as compared to releasing them and supervising them is astronomical. So, for instance, a person being watched for a year, pre-trial, $4,000 a year. Putting that same person in jail, it's about $20,000 to $40,000 a year, depending on the jurisdiction. So the cost on taxpayers to detain all these people that are actually safe to release is astronomical. And I think Utahns should be upset about the costs of this.
The Utah legislature recently performed an audit on Utah's bail system. They found that judges are lacking even basic information when making decisions, which negatively impacts public safety. The audit also recommended that courts implement a risk assessment tool to better inform judges.
Right now, when you appear before a judge, there's very little information that the judge has about you. But under the new system, the hope is that the judge will have a list of information about you, prior convictions or other information that will help them decide whether you should be released, whether you're safe to release on bail. And that will really help individuals, because before that, all they had is a police report and just one side. And now they have, a kind of balanced sheet of information about the individual.
Most individuals that are arrested that can't afford their bail are very low-level offenders. And they're not the individuals that we're concerned about getting back into the public. In fact, I would argue that this is going to provide better assurance of safety. No system is perfect, but this will provide the opportunity for a judge to look at that individual. In fact, there may be some individuals that are dangerous, are connected to gangs, are connected to high-level drug deals, can make bail very easily, but the judge could assess and look at their background and their criminal history and can keep them in custody despite the fact that they could post bail. So what that tells me is we're going to a system that can provide greater assurance of safety than where we've been.
When you have a system based on risk and based on your violent crime history, which is what we're moving towards, you're going to have way less likelihood to have pretrial crime because those that are dangerous will be detained and those that are safe to release will be released. And it doesn't matter if they're rich or poor. And so that will really help pretrial crime, I think.
In our criminal justice system, you should always be presumed innocent until the government proves that you're guilty. However, under our current bail system, this isn't happening. People are being locked away for weeks, sometimes months, without any conviction, which is absolutely wrong.
Criminal justice reform is real, it's happening, and Utah is going to be on the cutting edge of making sure, step by step, that we fix and promote a system that remembers that you are innocent until proven guilty, and that we shouldn't just be locking people up because of their income.
Justice shouldn't depend on how much money you have in your bank account. And it really should depend on the evidence against you and the crime that you committed and the harm that you've caused to others.